All right, folks, welcome into the latest edition of College Basketball Coast to Coast as we come your way with the Saturday Nightcap Live for the final time in February. It's about to be March, and we love that here as we talk on the nation's college basketball show and pod. I am merely the somewhat capable host, TJ Rives. Hello to my wingman, Jason Powers, who's with me on these Saturday nights. Good to be back with you. How are things as we've been digesting all the college hoops?
Very good, very good. We had a few must-win situations tonight, and the teams that needed to win the games won their games.
Yeah, no doubt. We got a lot to talk about here on the program. If you are seeing us, we're on all the social media platforms, on Twitter X, on the College Basketball YouTube page, College Basketball Coast to Coast, as well as the Twitter CBB Coast to Coast. Then you can also hear this program in podcast form. So if you're hearing us on the pod for Sunday, etc., we are live on Saturday nights doing this, heading all the way through March, all the way through championship week, the NCAA tournament, and the Final Four. Guests aplenty coming up. Straight ahead, we're going to talk Atlantic 10 as we go coast to coast. Bill Rowland, the voice of the George Mason Patriots. Jason, I was so looking forward to talking to him about a 12-game win streak. Didn't happen. VCU beat them earlier today. Nonetheless, Bill Rowland will be here with us momentarily to talk George Mason's season, which has been a really good one that he does the games for. Virginia Commonwealth, how good are they? How good's the Atlantic 10? That and a lot more in a few moments. Later in the hour, Duke has gotten done pummeling, absolutely dump trucking Illinois tonight. Adam Zagoria, our insider from NJ.com and the Zags blog, inside Madison Square Garden, has seen it firsthand. Ringside seat to that Mike Tyson-esque first-round knockout tonight by the Duke Blue Devils over Illinois. Message sent. Quick comment from you, Jason. Message sent with that, no doubt.
Well, I was in and out of that game, boy. It was dominant performance. I know Illinois is not as good as they were last year, but, boy, what a performance by Duke on a neutral floor, and they are clearly a number one seed.
Yeah, no doubt. You were in and out. Illinois was mostly out tonight after the game was 39-20 and 17 at the half, and then eventually 100 to something. So Duke has completed that. They destroyed them tonight. They've completed now an out-of-conference season that has a win over Auburn and a win at Arizona, as well as the losses to Kansas and Kentucky. But Duke's had an interesting out-of-conference and seems to be the best team in the ACC. So Adam Zagoria will be here in a little bit to talk about that. We'll check in with the West Coast Bureau Chief Matt Zemek later on in the program. Big win for Oregon in the Big Ten. Big win for St. Mary's tonight over Gonzaga. St. Mary's, Jason Powers has clinched the West Coast Conference regular season title tonight on Gonzaga's home floor. How about that? Real quick comment. We'll talk to Matt more about it later on in the show.
Yeah, you and I talked earlier in the evening. I said, boy, that's a lot of points. St. Mary's are getting like 7 points on the road. I know Gonzaga's good at home. But, boy, great performance by St. Mary's, and interesting that West Coast Conference. Will they get 3 in? Will San Francisco be a factor? That tournament will be as competitive as it's been in many, many years.
Very true. And, again, for the Gales, second straight WCC regular season title. It is the first time since the mid-'90s when Loyola Marymount won the conference twice in a row, that somebody other than Gonzaga wins the regular season twice in a row, and it's not them. So St. Mary's got that win tonight. Again, thank you for finding us. Feel free to interact with the show. If you're watching us on the YouTube feed, on Facebook, we'll see comments. Weigh in, say hello to us, tell us where you watch the show from, make a comment. We love that. We'll get to those. Without further delay, why don't we welcome in the voice of the George Mason Patriots. Hello, Bill Rowland, joining us on College Basketball Coast to Coast. My XM and Sirius XM satellite brother from another mother. 20 years we've known each other. He still returns my call, my text, Jason Powers, and College Basketball Coast to Coast audience. I love that about you. Even off a defeat on the road where you had to drive back home, you have posted on the Saturday Nightcap, and I love that about you, my friend. Welcome.
It's great to be with you, TJ and Jason. Tough one today for the Patriots, but still been a pretty good season here so far. In the Atlantic 10, I mean, we look at some of these other conferences. I'll tell you what, that conference tournament in Washington, D.C. is going to be absolutely wild outside the top 2 seeds.
All right, so more on that in a moment. Again, I don't want to beat you up because I was looking for a happier interview, but why was VCU so good today in snapping the 11-game winning streak. I know Max Shulga had 22. What about him, and what else did they do well?
Yeah, well, it was actually the Patriots had a 1-point lead at halftime, and it was just the first 8 minutes of the second half. Mason ended up turning the ball over 8 times in that stretch, and that's, again, if you know anything about VCU, that's all they need. They started turning turnovers into points. I think by the end of it, it was 20 points off the Patriot turnovers, but most of it came in that flurry. The Patriots led 29-27. The turnovers led to a 15-0 run for VCU. Couple different times, Mason had a chance with the ball down 9, had a couple of good looks in transition at threes. They didn't hit them. The lead never got below 9 the rest of the way, and VCU kind of stretched it out there at the end and ended up winning by 16. But it was, for the first 20 minutes or so, exactly what Mason wanted, and that was a rock fight. They want that game against Virginia Commonwealth to be kind of in that pace to be in the 60s. They had it there at halftime, again, 25-24, and it just got away from them in the first 5-6 minutes of the second half.
And more again on VCU. This is the only meeting, right? So you've seen them one time, and it's the only time you will see them. More on them, because traditionally they've been good. They've been an NCAA tournament program. Just assess them, seeing them at courtside.
Yeah, they are basically what you would expect from a VCU Rams team. They are going to pressure you. They have great athleticism all over the floor. And Shula and a couple of the other guys, they have great shooters. In fact, they take a ton of threes. I want to say they're top 20 in the nation in number of threes taken per game. So they're going to shoot their threes. An interesting note that I didn't know, our head coach Tony Skinn told me before the game, they are more effective on their offensive rebound kickouts for threes than running their regular offense and getting threes. They offensive rebound at a very high rate, and they are able to convert those when they get the kickouts. Guys open, dead eye shooters out there. They're going to be tough. I tell you what, if they end up making the NCAA tournament, and I think tonight's victory probably puts them in for an at-large if they don't win the A-10 tournament, they're one of those teams that's going to go in like a 10 or 11, maybe right around there, maybe an 8 or 9. Somebody is not going to want to see them come around number 2.
And Jason, that's the perfect segue. That's what we were about to ask, right? Go ahead.
Yeah, Bill, give us a little assessment of the A-10 in general. Is this going to be a multi-bid league? Is this going to be – what's your assessment of the league in general? Obviously, you mentioned the conference tournament coming up. Talk about the league in whole, and is this a league where 4 or 5 teams can win this conference, or is this kind of a 2 or 3 team that's the favorites into the conference tournament?
Yeah, I tell you what, Jason, I think the only way they get 2 in is if VCU makes it to the finals and gets beat. There isn't anybody else. Mason had the second best resume as far as an at-large team. Losing on the road to Virginia Commonwealth. Look, they're now 72 in Ken Palm. Their net rating's probably right around 70 as well. And there aren't any more opportunities going forward to get quality wins. The Patriots' last 4 games, I want to say all 4 of the teams they play are below 500 in league play. So there's no quality opponent that you can be like, oh, that's going to jump you up in the net rating to be in that large team. So if you're the A-10, you want multiple teams, you need VCU to lose in the finals to somebody or not get to the finals. I think VCU is probably safe now as an at-large as long as they don't drop another game. The rest of the league is really interesting because St. Joe's is a team to keep an eye on. Mason just beat them by a point last week. Their schedule down the stretch is not hard at all. They could be on a stretch of winning 8 out of 9, 9 out of 10 going into Washington, D.C. They were a top 3 preseason pick for the A-10. They've got 2 great guards, and Xavier Brown and Eric Reynolds II. Guards dominate tournament play. We know that. They could be a threat. I'm not sure what happened with Dayton. They got wins at the beginning of the year, big-time wins, and have struggled now in conference play. It doesn't make much sense. Teams are even going into Dayton and beating them, which never used to happen. They're an interesting team. They have enough talent that they could win the A-10. They just haven't been really consistent. I think the third team behind VCU and George Mason is probably Loyola Chicago with Drew Valentine. They've played really well. Very physical team, but they struggle away from home. So it's going to be interesting to see if they can take that physicality on the road and then win what will probably be at least 4 games, maybe 3. They may end up with the double bye, but 3 or 4 games in DC. If they can, they could be one to dance as well. But outside of those, I'm not sure you have anybody else that's a real threat to be able to go and win 3 or 4 games.
Quick follow-up, Bill. Has
Sure.
this league really suffered with lack of NIL, with the bigger schools coming in poaching the better players off these good? It's a good league, but the better players out of some of these programs.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. I mean, I can't speak to every team because I don't know exactly what their breakdown is. But for a team like us, George Mason last year, our leading scorer, Keyshawn Hall, he's now playing in the Big 12, which is a step up, obviously, from the A-10. And a lot of that had to do with NIL money. I mean, you look around at every single league. And look, we can complain about teams going, players going up to the Power Four. But those other mid-major conferences are saying the same thing about the A-10, about they're grabbing our guys and pulling them up. So that's just the nature of college basketball. But yeah, and not only that, Jason, I think you're going to see that there are some teams, there's going to be a big divide, I think, coming up in the next couple of years between some of the top teams in the league and what they're paying in NIL money, and maybe some of those teams that just can't afford to do it. And unfortunately, that means those teams are going to get left behind. I think you're going to see a big gap. There's going to be like 5, 6, 7 teams that will rise up, and then you're going to have 4 or 5 teams at the bottom that just can't compete because they don't have the money.
Again, Bill Rowland with us for a few more moments. Find him on social media at Bill Rohland. Bill Rowland is the voice of the George Mason Patriots, working their game today with Virginia Commonwealth. It had been an 11-game win streak, one of the top stories in mid-major basketball. Still are today. Am I not correct? Is this year 20 for you, 19 or 20 for you on the call?
Well, for play-by-play, it's year number 19. I was an analyst prior to that for 7 years, so we're over 25 years now. I know.
And you know where I'm going. You know where I'm going. That 2006, 19 years ago, is the Final Four run, and that Final Four culminated, I'm correct, in the Washington, D.C. downtown arena,
correct,
which is the Capital One Arena, and that's where the A-10 tournament is. Am I correct on that?
That is correct.
So we got a little deja vu maybe working. And Tony Skinn was a player on that team, and he's now the coach. Do you feel me trying to give the connection vibes to George Mason come A-10 tournament, including Bill Rowland, 6 degrees of separation from Bill Rowland?
Yeah, we're trying. It was funny because Tony hadn't been in the Siegel Center where VCU plays since 2006 when Mason went down there and actually won at the Siegel Center, which is a tough place to get wins. And so I was talking to him about that. I said, are you getting the nostalgia feel? Does it feel weird to walk in here as a coach and not a player? And he's like, yeah, it's been 19 years. He goes, it seems like a lifetime ago. But sure, all of that has been made of, playing again at VCU, going to Washington, D.C. for the A-10 tournament. I think bare minimum, this is an NIT team. I think they have to win the A-10 tournament, which is going to be a tough ask of any team. Again, conference tournaments are crazy, as we know, but it certainly has been nice to see him come in and kind of revive this program. 2 straight years of 20-plus wins. They're well over that this year. They're probably going to end up around 24, 25, 26 wins, which will be, going into the postseason, got a shot at setting the all-time school record, which is 27. So it's been a great story. I know maybe nationally it hasn't got as much attention, but certainly within the A-10 and around the media here on the East Coast, people are paying attention that Tony's done a really good job with this team.
And on that same note, Bill, earlier in the year, we saw Coach Larinaga step away at Miami, kind of retire. You know him very well. Just talk about his legacy at Mason and in the college basketball world. What a phenomenal run he had with you, and then obviously what he did at Miami, getting them to the Final Four. Just talk about his career in the college basketball world.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any doubt the guy should be a Hall of Famer. I don't think there's any question about that. You take 2 different programs and not what were considered elite programs at any level when he took them over. Mason was coming off 4 years of playing under Paul Westhead. The last 2 years, I think we want to combine 17 games. And he comes in year 2, he's got Mason in the NCAA tournament. In year 7, we're a Final Four team. Sticks around another 5 years, takes us back to another NCAA tournament or 2, beat Villanova in round 1 in 2011, and then went and took the Miami job. And we know what he did at Miami. Again, another Final Four, a couple of Elite Eights. I mean, he's a class act all the way around. And that's the thing in this day and age in college basketball. We saw it with Tony Bennett. We saw it with Roy Williams. We see it with Coach L. I think they just got to the point where they had been people that had done it the right way for so long that I think they feel like the way things are now is not the right way for college basketball. Fair or unfair,
right?
These players should probably get some money, but they probably don't feel like it doesn't feel right to have these guys making, $500,000 in some cases. So again, I sent him a text when he stepped down, said thanked him for everything that he did, not only for us at Mason, but just in college basketball in general. A great ambassador for the sport. They're going to miss him, obviously, not only in Miami, but college basketball as a whole. And we're seeing that more and more. I mean, you just saw Florida State that, Coach Hamilton steps down. It's a changing of the guard in the ACC. And I think a lot of these veteran coaches are just kind of throwing their hands up and going, we don't know what's going on. I don't want to have anything to do with it anymore.
Well said. Tony Bennett at the beginning of the year, Jim Boeheim saying goodbye. You wonder is Mike Krzyzewski next? I mean, I'm sorry, is Tom Izzo next? Mike Krzyzewski gone, Roy Williams gone, Boeheim gone. Is Tom Izzo next?
Maybe
Bill Self. I've had enough of doing this. I've had enough of re-recruiting my team. That's a longer discussion that will continue to be had over a longer amount of time. Mason, one more time, Bill Rowland finishes up with whom in the regular season trying to win the league and be the number one seed at the A-10 tournament. What do you guys finish up with regular season?
Yeah, they're going to need some help because tied now with Virginia Commonwealth. They only played them the one time, so the Rams hold the head-to-head tiebreaker. Patriots will finish with Fordham, on the road at Duquesne, home against LaSalle, and then on the road at Richmond. That's their final four. If you're hoping, if you're a Patriot fan, that they can get the number one seed, you're probably looking at the final game of the regular season on a Friday night, Dayton at Virginia Commonwealth. That may be the one that maybe VCU stubs their toe on. If they both went out, VCU would have the number one seed at 16-2. The Patriots are going as the number 2. And
clarify in the conference tournament, what's the situation with the buys for the 1 and the 2 seed? How does that work?
Yeah, top four automatically go to the quarterfinals. Both VCU and George Mason have already clinched top 4. One more win for both these teams, and they clinch top 2 seeds. So they are far and away ahead of everybody else. They're 3 games up with 4 to play on teams like Loyola Chicago, on teams like Dayton, and on teams like St. Joe's.
All right, listen, you are a pro's pro. I have said that to you for 20-plus years of knowing you. Bill has put up with me since the twins were born, Riley and Abby. Have I showed you a recent picture? That this is going back to the Sirius XM days. They're now 17, almost 16 and 3/4. They're
chucking,
the twins.
And chucking threes, Bill, in the JV world, chucking them like it's like they're Bo Kimball back in the Loyola and Marymount days.
I got one twin that loves the mid-range game, and the other one thinks she's in range when she walks in the gym, wherever she is. She's just going to gun it up. So we love the fact that Bill goes way back with me. When the twins were born in the Sirius XM days. He continues to say, I cannot believe they're driving. I cannot believe they're juniors in high school. I can't believe that 2006 was 19 years ago when I got to say Bill Rowland's working a Final Four game for George Mason. Let's hope March is a fantastic March for you and the Mason Patriots, my friend. I always root for you on that. Thank you for popping on here on College Basketball Coast to Coast to lead it. With us here tonight. We thank you, Bill Rowland. Good luck the rest of the season. Perhaps we're talking to you again in March. Keep that phone handy for the text or the call, Bill, on College Basketball Coast to Coast.
TJ, Jason, you guys know anytime you need me, I'm here for you. So you just hit me up and we'll do this again. Hopefully it'll be the preview of Mason back in the NCAA tournament. But
love it.
Thanks a lot. Looking forward to watching the rest of the show.
Love that. Thank you, Bill Rowland, hanging here with us to start the program. Again, Adam Zagoria has been covering the post game of the Duke demolition of Illinois. He will hopefully be able to join us soon here on the program. So we appreciate Bill's leading off. And again, Matt Zimick will talk some Western basketball later on in the live stream. Let's get everybody up to date on a couple of things that have gone on tonight besides the Duke win. Arkansas with a large win tonight for their at-large hopes, Jason Powers. They have finished off Missouri tonight in the matchup in Fayetteville, off the Auburn loss, not unexpected against the number 1 team in the country.
Played well at Auburn, played pretty well.
And they came on strong in the second half of this game with Missouri, a game they were losing earlier tonight, but they have won the game. So say something. I know the at-large stuff is just up in the air, and Arkansas took a step, not a complete leap into the NCAA tournament at large, but they're able to get the win tonight. What was my final? 92-85. They have beaten Missouri tonight. Thought on Arkansas real quick?
No, I mean, you and I talked earlier. This was a must-win game. You got a ranked team in your building. You had to win the game. You've gotten to 5 conference wins now. I think you need to get to 7 to have I think if you can get to 7 before the conference tournament, you're going to be in good shape. And they got four left. You've got to find a way to get 2 more here. That's this again, national marquee game. Calipari said it after the Auburn game. Hey, the ball's in our court. We got to go win some games. We can't keep losing close games. They win a must-win game at home. They beat obviously they beat Missouri. They get a little more help with Texas losing at South Carolina, who hadn't won a conference game all year. How about that? That's a bad loss for Rodney Terry, but a must-win game for Calipari in Arkansas. And you and I both think if he's the last bid in, he's going to get the benefit of the doubt going to Dayton. If he's got to go to Dayton with the name in Arkansas and the national brand, they'll be in Dayton at worst.
Yeah, I would agree on the if it's close, let's just be honest. It's not going to be Drake over
George Mason
or George Mason, sorry, Bill, or San Francisco,
right,
or some of these other programs that are hoping to vie for it.
Even Oklahoma, if it's them in Oklahoma, they're getting the nod.
Yes, I would agree with that. And again, this was the most significant of their remaining games. That's their 4th quad 1 win. That may be enough to justify them. They are now 4-9 in quad 1. Arkansas with that victory tonight. A couple of other games to talk about from today. Is Houston the best team in the Big 12 right now? They certainly flexed again today with a win over Iowa State at home. Houston already with a win last Saturday at Arizona, already with a double overtime win over Kansas. Kelvin Sampson's team, I think you can make the argument they're the best team in the Big 12, and they look like Final Four material. Thought from you on them?
They've got what you need. They got inside, they got outside. They're rugged. They got veterans. They got Cryer starting to play well. They got the kid from down here, the point guard. What's the kid's name? The point guard. It'll come to me.
Sharp is one of them. Like
you got the big man in the middle, the lefty in the middle, who's kind of their power player. So and Sampson is the coach. We know what kind of coach he is. He stresses defense. They don't shoot it great, but they score enough, and they figure out ways to defend. And you beat, like I said, huge wins: Arizona, Kansas, Iowa State. I know Iowa State was missing a couple guys today, but still a huge win for Houston. They're going to be a 2 seed at worst, and they're the best team in the Big 12 for me.
And again, in this game today, Cryer, who you mentioned, had 28, and Uzan had 19 for them. So those 2 guys combined, obviously, for 47 of their 68 points in the win. And they suffocate almost everybody they play in that building in the Fertitta Center. Now, the only bad news is they're about to play in the Big 12 tournament in Kansas City and then in neutral situations in the NCAA tournament. But, man, when they're at home, they put the lockdown on you. So kudos to Houston as they get the win. Again, if you're just finding us, if you're just seeing us, it's the Saturday nightcap of college basketball coast to coast. We're recapping the final Saturday in February live on social media and on YouTube. Find us on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube. If you're hearing the podcast the day after, you missed out on the live show. TJ Rives, Jason Powers with you here on the program. You can find this show on my social media at Buck Sideline Guy, Jason's social media as well at JPO Sports. Find it on the college basketball coast to coast Twitter handle at CBB coast to coast here as well. Find all of our content on that and on podcast, Apple, Spreaker, Spotify for all the content. We love it. Also on the TuneIn Live channel, College Basketball Coast to Coast. Search under the name College Basketball Coast to Coast. It's free to hear on the TuneIn Live channel. We'll have live games coming championship week. Stand by for the announcement on which games we're doing championship week and where. From the smaller conferences, automatic bids on the line. We look forward to that, Jason Powers, as well, one more time.
Yeah, looking forward to it. And, we'll be on the road a little bit and some some good leagues that we're going to be covering. Leagues that you've heard of and you know of, and that are going to be problems in the tournament. They're going to be dangerous teams when they get in the tournament. We'll be there covering it. How about Vanderbilt? I think Vanderbilt locked up a bid today, beating Ole Miss in a game they needed to win at home. What a job Byington's doing at Vanderbilt. Reshaped that whole roster after Stackhouse left. What a job in Nashville with Byington.
Wins over Tennessee, Kentucky, and now Ole Miss at home. So that helps Vandy's case in the rugged SEC from earlier today. And by the way, tonight we saw Alabama complete the sweep of Kentucky.
Low.
In a great performance. All right, full disclosure, Jason and I were together earlier this evening, and we were looking at, 180 and a half for the total, going, wait a minute, if it's like 89 to 88, you lose on a total of 180
no, you win.
Half.
You still win.
Well, you still win, right. On under, you got to be careful here on taking the over 180 and a half. It did stay under. Kentucky got off to a fantastic first 3 or 4 minutes. The problem was the next 36 minutes. They didn't shoot it as well. They were missing Lamont Butler again. They were missing Jackson Robinson, the outstanding BYU transfer, has the wrist injury. They still have some firepower, but Alabama, Mark Sears with 30 more, and they came on strong, and they answered the bell off of 2 straight losses. Did Alabama, including the midweek loss to Missouri, where they played no defense whatsoever. What about the Tide?
Quick. To me, they're going to live and die how they play on the defensive end. And we know they can score. They have enough possessions in the game with how fast they play. They're going to get tons of possessions. They're most likely going to get to 75 almost every night, barring something catastrophic. Can they defend? And tonight, I'll give them credit. First 5 minutes, they were terrible on the defensive end, but the next 15, 18 minutes of that game, they really played. Again, they weren't elite. They don't have to be elite, but they were serviceable, and they were playing with some effort and some intensity, and it showed. If Bama can play with defense a little bit, they don't have to be great. They can play defense a little bit, keep teams to 70 or 75. They're going to have a hard time getting beat.
You got to make some effort on the defensive end, of which they basically made none against Arizona the other night. So Alabama, they've got plenty of wins away from Tuscaloosa, too. They've won at Texas A&M. They've won at Texas. They've won at Kentucky. They've won a neutral floor.
Did they beat Houston? No.
They beat Houston in a neutral floor game in Las Vegas. So they've got some wins away from home, and Alabama's likely going to be at worst a 2 seed, if not a number 1 seed. By the way, we should not ignore Tennessee. Our buddy Vince Ferrara watches this show and says, why is it that you don't even bring up Tennessee on college basketball coast to coast? Vince Ferrara, for you, brother. Huge win for the Vols in a slug-it-out game at Texas A&M today. Again, we reiterate with
Chase
Ziegler,
Lanier with 30.
Chase Lanier, Ziegler, as well as Milicic, the transfer from Charlotte, the big 6'9" power forward that can handle the ball and shoot the ball. Rick Barnes has got a team that is talented at both ends. They guard, they can score. Big win for them, and it once again underscores like the top 6 of the SEC. Who's going to win this tournament out of the top 6 of this conference, Jason?
No, it's going to be a bloodbath in Nashville when they play. Again, we've talked about this. Do you want to play 4 games in 4 days? I know they want to win a conference tournament, but you'd almost rather play 2 and lose than have to go play 4 games and then turn around on travel and go to the NCAA tournament. Interesting to see how some of these coaches play it come conference. But if you're Tennessee, all the Tennessee fans, if you can score 70, I think you got a great chance too. That's always been their issue, is can they score enough? If Lanier plays well, can get him 20 plus, and he got 30 today, huge win. They got experience, they got size, and if they can get to 70, they're going to be a very dangerous out too.
Vols again able to get it done. I'm just looking for their full profile. They're possibly a number 1 seed again.
Probably a 2. Probably
Tennessee,
a 2.
More than likely,
3.
A 2. I'm looking in the conference standings on where they might end up. Obviously, Florida's had a tremendous season, so Tennessee's in the group at 9-5 with Missouri and Texas A&M. That's behind Alabama and Florida at 11-3. So those teams are all battling at 9-5 to be the 4 seed and get the bye into the quarterfinals and not have to play until Friday. Not have to play until Friday in Nashville. Friday, Saturday, Sunday for the top 4 seeds. Everybody else has got to play at least Thursday, if not Wednesday.
Right.
Auburn leads the conference at 13-1. Tennessee now 5 in the net ranking, 9 quad 1 wins. This was a quad 1 win today at A&M. If you're wondering again for the Southeastern Conference, Jason, are you ready? Auburn is 1 in the net. Florida is 4. Tennessee is 5. Alabama is 6. 4 of the top 6 teams in the NCAA net power ranking are SEC teams. But wait, there's more, because Missouri is 13, even with the loss tonight to Arkansas. Kentucky is 14, and Texas A&M is 17. I went to public school. That's 7 SEC teams in the top 17 of the net right now.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow, on how strong this conference is. It's because of how well they did out of the conference, and now they're beating up each other in this league's play. But a big win for Tennessee today as the stretch run continues.
How about
we love all of it. Go ahead. Final thought.
Yeah, I was just going to say, the SEC, are they going to get 12? I have a hard time saying. I have a hard time believing Oklahoma and Arkansas are going to get in. I know, unless they just go on, both of them go on runs here. When you're 4-9, 4, whatever. I know they both got 4. I think Arkansas's got 5 now. Oklahoma's got 4. I think Lenardi had Oklahoma as the last team in after their win today. I have a hard time believing how you're 4-9 in the tournament, but I guess the strength of that will be a major point of discussion with that committee when it comes to these way under 500 SEC teams. Well, is it enough to get them in?
And bear in mind, they're going to look at an Oklahoma or look at a Vanderbilt or an Arkansas and look at them against like a BYU that's playing Arizona as we speak, or look at a Wake Forest, or look at an SMU, or look at a Villanova who beat Marquette last night.
San Francisco.
That's part of the judge down at spot number 66, 67, and 68 is how do you stack up overall resume, not just your conference, but overall resume.
I get it.
How do you stack up? And the SEC teams are going to be an advantage because they've gotten so many more chances against the quad one as well. All right, without further delay, let's go right now to Madison Square Garden, and Adam Zagoria, our insider from NJ.com and the Zags blog, he is hanging with us and I believe ready to go right now on college basketball coast to coast. Get that hair straightened out. Get ready to go. You movie star, you. Okay, they introduced the starting lineups tonight, and then Duke, I think, was up 15 right after that, and this was no contest. So welcome in, Adam. And you saw it firsthand. How big of a blowout was this by Duke? Welcome in.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. It seems like Duke won by about 1 million points here tonight. It wasn't close. They won by 43 points.
Yep.
Total blowout. Cooper Flagg only had 16 points and 7 rebounds, but, it was a total team effort with it's like 7 guys in double figures for Duke.
Yeah, we're all good. We hear you fine. Keep going.
So, just a total blowout, and Duke looks like a team that can win the whole thing. And, just a complete domination of Illinois here at the Garden tonight. This was Cooper Flagg's first game at the Garden. Obviously, he's going to be in the NBA next season, playing for somebody, playing here against the Knicks. So, big night for Duke.
You mentioned 7 players in double figures. What else impressed you besides spreading the scoring around? Were there other things that you saw firsthand that you just went, wow, at how impressed you were?
I mean, Illinois shot, 2 of 26 from 3.
Wow.
This kid who used to be a walk-on for Duke, who's now on scholarship, Spencer Hubbard, had half as many threes as Illinois' entire team. So
is your colleague there in the media room okay? Did he fall over, the guy that walked behind you? We want to make sure that we don't need to call the paramedics. Is everything okay?
Matt Norlander's, having a little trouble here walking around the press room. But
I understand.
He's
trying to get on his own show.
After he tripped.
Okay, we'll see if he's all right.
So, it was a tough shooting night for Illinois, but
they began the game 0 for 18, right, from 3-point range. They made as many threes as you, me, and Jason in the first part of the game. And it was the 3 of us, TJ and I, had as many threes as Illinois had there for a long part of the game. So,
it was a tough shooting night for them. Obviously, Duke's defense held them to 67 points. Duke just looks like, the SEC is obviously the league to beat here, and they have a bunch of teams that can win the championship. But, Duke has all the makings of a team that's, a Final Four team and a team that could win the whole thing.
Hey, Adam, talk about the other story around this game. Jai Lucas probably getting named the Miami coach. Talk about that and how that, that dynamic and what kind of coach. Apparently, he's got a great reputation as a recruiter. Talk about Jai Lucas and that potentially going to Miami.
Yeah, I talked to some Nike EYBL coaches before the game who said, he's a monster recruiter. He's obviously got ties to, Nike EYBL team. He's recruited well at, previous stops at Florida and Texas and now at Duke. And then we just asked Coach Shire about it after the game, and he said he's absolutely a head coach. He's, that's part of why he hired him. He's 100%, ready to be a head coach. And, John sort of didn't nail down the specifics of what happened, but, he said they're going to move forward, working with Jay as things go forward. So it's happening. And, Miami's going to go in a kind of a 180 from, an older 70-something coach in Jim Larinaga to a much younger guy in Jay Lucas. And, they obviously have a lot of NIL money down there. So he'll have a lot of opportunities recruiting and portal wise to use the NIL money. And, another thing, guys, is the portal opens in a couple weeks here, March 24th. So, the new staffs at all these schools are going to have to get busy, right after the NCAA tournament starts.
Couple more real quick, because I know you want to go and get out of there, and I'm going to explain why in a second. Do you believe, what do we know, is Duke legit Final Four material with all the young players? Kneppel's a freshman. Malawach, the big man, is also a freshman. Do you believe they're Final Four material from what you saw courtside on this last Saturday in February, Adam?
Yeah, 100%. They were really impressive tonight. I think you have to give John Shire and his staff credit for the roster construction they did here. We've talked about Rutgers before, guys. Obviously Rutgers has two of the top three picks, but, Steve Pico and his staff weren't able to really balance out that roster with enough older, talented players. The other guys they have on that roster, for lack of a better word, they're just not talented enough, not good enough to get Rutgers into the NCAA tournament, whereas, Duke did a good job bringing in transfers and getting these older guys, and they got a couple guys, back from last year and Proctor and Foster. So they have a really balanced roster. Flag has exceeded expectations. Brad Underwood just said here he's the best player in the country. It's not close. He hopes he comes back next year, which I thought was kind of interesting. He said, they should work out an NIL deal to bring Cooper back, and he said he thought he'd be better in college than the NBA, which is kind of interesting. So, and there was other kind of fun story was Cooper's brother Ace won a state championship tonight. So it was a big night for the Flag family.
Yeah, no doubt. All right. So I know you got to go in a moment or two. And the reason I know you got to go in a moment or two is because St. John's is playing UConn in that same building coming up now, in about 13 hours, which begs the question, are you sleeping on a cot in that room that you're in to just hang there and stick around for St. John's in Connecticut? Or what is this? What is the update?
Yeah, I was just joking. I think Jeff Borzello and Matt Norlander, who are here with me, are going to get some sleeping bags and some cots, and we might just hang out here and have a movie marathon tonight. Watch
might
a
have to
couple.
do.
Find Raftery. Raftery's night's just starting. Go find Raftery somewhere, roaming around MSG.
Yeah,
but no, that game's at noon. It's going to be another big time environment with. It'll be interesting, guys, to see if it's how the crowd breaks down between UConn fans who always travel well and the St. John's fans, whether St. John's has, more than 50% of the crowd. But, it's a big time game. St. John's is in first place by a couple games. They're trying to win their first outright Big East title in 40 years. And, Rick Pitino's on the brink of more history here. This is going to be the sixth different school he takes to the NCAA tournament.
Wow.
He could win the Big East Conference with a second school, which no coach has ever done. And he's also never been named Big East Coach of the Year, which he seems like a lock for at this point.
Yep, all of that riding on tomorrow. Listen, you're great to hang with us after watching Duke just crush Illinois tonight. St. John's and UConn noon Sunday. We will read his recap of the Duke stuff, NJ.com and the Zags blog, previews of St. John's and UConn, and a recap there as well, especially if they're hearing us after the fact, time displaced and on the pod. Read the preview, read the recap on NJ.com for St. John's and Connecticut on Sunday. Adam Zagoria, thank you. Well done popping in on college basketball coast to coast on a Saturday night again with us. We appreciate it.
Thanks, fellas. Have a good night.
All right, go get some rest there as well. There goes Adam Zagoria hanging with us here this evening.
We take you coast to coast here on college basketball coast to coast.
We do. Our buddy Matt Zimick will be joining us coming up. He's in the Valley of the Sun, by the way, where BYU and Arizona is like the last prominent game that's going on in the Big 12 tonight. They've just started the second half. We'll have more on that. We'll have more as well here on college basketball coast to coast on this. Again, if you're just getting in here with us, St. Mary's has won tonight at Gonzaga and won the West Coast Conference regular season championship. Now at 15-1 for them, they win the WCC regular season title back-to-back years. How about Randy Bennett? I believe has been there close to 20 years. Yeah. He's never won at Gonzaga twice in a row. They beat him last year in the kennel. They beat him tonight. Great performance by them.
You surprised a guy like him has not gone somewhere a little bit bigger program?
You have to wonder if somebody comes after him with a lot more money and has the NIL, if that's what he wants to do, or maybe he's happy making what he makes in Moraga, California, and in the smaller conference and battling with Gonzaga and San Francisco in those programs. You just wonder whether he hangs in there. But St. Mary's gets the win. They're going to be the number 1 seed in the West Coast Conference tournament. Gonzaga, it looks like, will be the 3rd seed. If they were to lose one more game, they might be the 4 seed. And the significance there, again, is they could play the semifinal game against St. Mary's before it's even the championship game on the West Coast Conference neutral floor in Las Vegas for the WCC tournament. So stand by for that as well.
How about Oregon coming back from 17 down today at Madison? That Oregon Duck team is rolling now, 5 or 6 in a row in the Big Ten. We thought they were left for dead about 2.5 weeks ago. Matt Zemek was talking about how they were really sliding. They have put together a huge last 3 weeks.
And it was an overtime tying shot by Shielstad, the guard, about 4 feet behind the three-point line, just like Jason Powers back in the day. Buried the long three, forced the overtime, and they outplay a red-hot Wisconsin team at their place. I mean, go figure Oregon with some of these losses, including at home. Now they show up and beat Wisconsin late in the year. How wild is the Big Ten tournament going to ultimately be as well with them and
Michigan,
Purdue and Michigan State with the win at Michigan on Friday night? How crazy is the Big Ten tournament going to be?
And you had the news where Dusty May re-signed. He's now out of the Indiana talk. So he's re-upped at Michigan, and so that's not going to be a possibility.
How about that? Because again, Indiana had a chance to potentially hire him last year, couldn't do it. There's rumors they might try to snatch him away from Michigan after 1 year, and Michigan says, we just gave him a Brinks truck worth of money to stay at Michigan with the job.
Winning there, and he's winning. He's put them back in the top 15 of the country, back where they predominantly belong.
Absolutely. All right, before we get to our next guest, as we rock along on this Saturday nightcap, why don't we do this? Why don't we talk about our friends at Go Sleeves? Jason Powers, Go Sleeves, a proud sponsor of college basketball coast to coast. Therapeutic sleeves for the knees, the elbows, the calves. What do? They help you with inflammation. They help you with recovery. Great kinesiology technology, as you see on the screen if you're with us on the video, helps with the blood flow, helps with the ability to recover the next day or a couple of days later. Again, you're going to see this on the video, that if you are a tennis player, a pickleball player, a runner, if you bike, if you play weekend basketball, golf, whatever, the sleeves for the knees, the elbows, the calves, it is kinesiology technology for everybody. We love Go Sleeves. And Jason, by the way, is also holding up the
referee. It helps you on the referee.
If you officiate like he does as well, it's Go Time with Go Sleeves, and we remind you they are a proud sponsor of college basketball coast to coast. We've even got a promo code offer, GoSleeves.com/TJ. Take a discount with Go Sleeves, the kinesiology technology for the elbow, the knees, the calves. They've got a great new prototype athletic shirt for your back to help out with blood flow, inflammation, recovery. It's go time with Go Sleeves as a sponsor here on College Basketball Coast to Coast. And you can testify to the College Basketball Coast to Coast audience about it. Helps you
good
as
stuff
well.
For sure. Helps with alleviate some of the knee pressure on running around. NFL guys utilize the product. They've got NFL ambassadors.
Pickleball players, runners, triathletes,
tennis players.
Go see all about it at GoSleeves.com and use the promo code TJ. Very simple here off College Basketball Coast to Coast for a little discount. It's go time with Go Sleeves. Love those guys. Darren Lancaster, his whole crew with Go Sleeves. Thank you for the sponsorship. All right, we've waited long enough. We need the wisdom. We need the insight. We need the wit. We need the pop culture references. Hello, Matt Zemek, the West Coast Bureau Chief. Here on College Basketball Coast to Coast. Good to be back with you, my friend. The more we watch, the less we understand. That's why March is coming. How are you on a Saturday night?
What a wild day. Started with Oregon doing its thing, scrambling late after trailing. That's been a theme. Oregon makes life difficult for itself, but last 3 minutes, that team's been nails. And just think, Oregon right now, probably around like a number 7 seed, maybe a 6, with 9 quad 1 wins. What a weird team, and what a weird season. They've been bad. They've been bad the past 2.5 weeks or so, and yet they have 9 quad 1 wins. They have this amazing stack of victories. Just what a weird team.
And it's a weird year because they're in the Big Ten playing all of these different teams. And I want to look at their profile here. You mentioned all the quad 1 wins, some of it out of the conference. They're now 9-6, 34 in the net ranking. But how do you figure this team, which early on got some significant wins, going to Ohio State and winning, beating Maryland, who turns out to be good. But then they had Purdue come beat them in Eugene. They lost at UCLA. They lost to Nebraska. They lost to Michigan. They lost to Michigan State. Well, now they've turned around and put 3 wins together with Rutgers winning at Iowa in overtime. And today, that may be their best road win. I'm saying that. That may be their best true road win today, Matt, with an overtime win at Wisconsin. How do we explain them gathering themselves the way that they have? What do we attribute it to? What do you think?
Well, I mean, it's a team that doesn't give up. They don't quit. I mean, that's really their best attribute. They're down 10 with 5 minutes left. They're down 14 with 6 minutes left. They don't quit. Like, they've pulled a number of games out of the fire. Penn State's not a very good team. Oregon was down to Penn State like 4 or 5 points with 3 minutes left, came back and won. Ohio State's a bubble team. Oregon was down 4 points with like 3 minutes left in Columbus, came back and won. I mean, it's just one of those things. Like this team loves those late game pressure moments, but start of the game, middle of the game, these guys can't be bothered. So in other words, they're college students. They have senioritis almost every night they take the floor, So we've been there. I've been there, procrastinating on my term paper, on my book report, going all the way back to 5th grade. School started at St. Thomas the Apostle Elementary School in Phoenix, Arizona, back in the 80s. And so the school day would start at 8:30. I'd be in my car scribbling the final notes on my book report at 8:17. So
and that's Oregon.
I can relate to Oregon.
That's
Oregon.
Relate. And Dana Altman can coach for sure. Jason Powers, what else do you have for Matt Zemek here on a Saturday night?
Interesting game tomorrow in LA. UCLA, Oregon, Ohio State. Ohio State's very much on the bubble. UCLA is on the rise. Mick Cronin was on the Fox show tonight. I saw him on the pregame show tonight, leading into the Duke game. Talk about UCLA. We've talked about them the last couple weeks. They're going north. They're starting to put it together, but a huge game for Ohio State.
UCLA had been putting it together, no doubt. Won 7 of 8, but this past week, Jason, UCLA missed 4 of 4 free throws in the final 90 seconds, missed its last 5 free throws of the game. They missed another one with like 3:45 left, and they gack away a 17-point lead. They led Minnesota 29-12 early in that game. They lose to the Golden Gophers because of a free throw awareness month disaster class. And so that Minnesota team that beat UCLA lost to Penn State today. So, it's just when you thought UCLA had figured it all out, because again, they have won 7 of 8. And we remember Mick Cronin giving that tirade after getting drubbed by Michigan at home. It worked. Like, he kicked that team into gear. So now UCLA's eaten another really bad L. What is the response going to be against, yes, an Ohio State team that's right on the bubble after getting drilled by like 20 points by Northwestern at home? So that's going to be a really fascinating game. But one thing about UCLA, just a big picture, we're going to have so many blue bloods in the 7 to 9 seed range. UConn, UCLA, Gonzaga, they're all going to be in that 7 to 9 seed range. So CBS and Turner, man, they're going to have some blockbusters. Like, you could have UConn Duke in the second round. You could have Gonzaga Auburn in the second round. Man, these 1-8 games, 1-8 or 9 games are going to be amazing. And UCLA could be part of that.
You talked about their collapse against Minnesota. How about Ohio State's on the bubble and they score 49 points at home with Northwestern and get blown out midweek? I mean, these things are hard to explain right now. And maybe it's a preview of what we're in for in Indianapolis for the Big Ten tournament. Pick it up on that anything can potentially happen in this Big Ten tournament while we're counting on Michigan, Michigan State, Purdue, Wisconsin, Oregon at the top. Illinois. Maybe we're about to see chaos, Matt.
Jason made a great point. I've been watching this show, but even though I wasn't on, before I came on, Jason made an amazing point about how now that you have a 16 or 18 teams in a conference, and these big tournaments are going to have 15 teams. Like the Big Ten tournament's going to have 15, the ACC tournament's going to have 15. The bottom 3 don't even qualify. But with these 5-round, 5-day conference tournaments, I think Jason's onto something. You don't want to be playing the whole way and to have that fuel tank empty for the NCAA tournament. You want. I think these coaches will want to experiment. They'll want to tweak. They'll want to look at some lineup combinations. Obviously, if you're a bubble team, you have to go for it. If you have a chance to get a number 1 seed, you probably go for it. Like if you're getting a double bye into the quarters, go ahead and try to win your conference tournament. But if you're in between, there's not a whole lot of value to playing 4 days in a row. And it also brings up the point. Let's just bring it up now. We don't need to wait until mid-March here on college basketball coast to coast. Bring it up now. These conference tournaments should be going Tuesday through Saturday. 5 days. They should be playing their finals on Saturday so that the champion or the 2 teams that play in the final have that extra day of rest. Like, there is no point in having your conference tournament championship game on Sunday, except for television. But really, they should agree with like the Big Ten and CBS. Obviously the Big Ten has the tournament final right before the selection show on CBS. I know CBS wants it that way. If there's any way they can adjust that, because teams need that extra day off if they're going to be playing 3 or 4 days in a row. Well, I know money. It's money, but I want to get out of it if I'm a coach.
But clearly the ACC moved their tournament years ago backwards to Saturday. The Big 12 finishes on Saturday. Big East on Saturday, as they have for so many years. So that's an advantage that they're not playing on Sunday, which is kind of your point on that. Just one more on the Big Ten and on the mix up at the top. What do you make of Michigan State beating Michigan at Michigan? They do rematch again later in the year. Michigan State still got a tough schedule at the end of the year. What do you make of who ends up being the 1 and the 2 at the top of the Big Ten, real quick, Matt?
Well, so Michigan State has the tiebreaker, but they play again a second time. I would give the slight edge to Michigan State, but these, I think, the cream has risen to the top. These are the two best teams. Illinois at the beginning of January, after it beat Oregon by 32 in Eugene, I was thinking Illinois was going to be right in the mix, but we've seen the Illini fall off. And then Wisconsin, that's an important result. Wisconsin was one game back in the loss column from the two Michigan schools. Now Wisconsin's two back. Wisconsin's at Michigan State next weekend, 1 week from now. Yeah. So Wisconsin's chances of sharing the Big Ten title are virtually done. So it's going to come down to the remaining battle between Michigan State and Michigan, and it's in East Lansing. So advantage Spartans at this point for sure.
And real quick, because we were talking about it, what's your thought on St. Mary's? Again, as we talk with Matt Zemek, follow him on social media at Matt Zemek, Zemek. He's with us on College Basketball Coast to Coast. We're live on this Saturday. We've got our buddy, by the way, Tampa Bay Ray watching us, and he is asking, are you fellas live? Yes, we are absolutely live on Saturday night, Ray. Good to be with you. If you're watching us now, if you're only hearing us on podcast, you missed us on Saturday night. We are live. And on this Saturday night, St. Mary's has beaten Gonzaga, won the West Coast Conference regular season title for the second straight year. What a job for Randy Bennett and company. Is this a two-bid league? The WCC's got to be a two-bid league, whoever it's going to be. I'm saying that. Do you agree with that real quick, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, Gonzaga's probably going to be in the 8-9 game or close to it. Again, we got some big hitters in that 7, 8, 9 seed range. That's going to be really the story of the bracket to me on Selection Sunday. So Gonzaga's in. I mean, this cost Gonzaga a shot at the regular season WCC title, but the Zags are still in. But Randy Bennett, 47-5 in his last 52 West Coast Conference games. He goes 14-2 in 2023. He goes 15-1 last year, and then he wins the tournament. So basically, he was essentially 17-1 last year, and he's 15-1 now with 2 regular season games left. I mean, Randy Bennett is the most underappreciated elite coach in college basketball because he just stays in Moraga. He hasn't climbed the ladder for a power conference job. He just stays there and he just cranks out winners.
And interesting, again, on the net ranking, Gonzaga is 10, although they're only 2-6 in quad 1, but they're 10 in the net ranking. So they're going to get in. St. Mary's is 20. They've got 4 quad 1 wins. That was a quad 1 win tonight. 2 of their quad 1 wins are over Gonzaga. So they're in. So that means if there's a bid stealer like San Francisco, Santa Clara, maybe Oregon State pulling upsets, West Coast Conference could get 3 teams, Matt. Yeah. They could have.
And you guys were mentioning this. It's a great point. What if Gonzaga falls to the number 4 seed in the WCC tournament? That means the 2 and the 3, one of them would have a bid stealing opportunity in the final because one of them would be guaranteed to get to the final.
Could very well be if that's the case. Did we leave anything else out for you before we let you scoot along? Anything else that you want to touch on, Matt Zemek or Jason? Did you have something?
I got a question for you, Matt. Let's look at the Mountain West Conference. Top heavy. You got 5 really good teams, kind of all bunched at 11-5 or better. How many bids do you think this league gets? I mean, obviously you got New Mexico and Utah State leading, but you got Colorado State, San Diego State, Boise all right there vying for that 3, 4, 5 spot. Is this league, we know how strong they were last year. How many do you think this league gets?
Well, first I'll give you the answer, but first let's break down what happened tonight. San Diego State led Utah State by 2, 67-65 with about 3.5 minutes left. San Diego State would have punched its ticket if it had beaten Utah State, but it faltered down the stretch, didn't score in like a 3-minute span late. So San Diego State still has work to do. Still on the good side of the cut line, but still has work to do. The other big story, Boise State comes back, beats Nevada by 1 in Reno. Wow. That keeps the Broncos alive. They really, really need that. Boise State plays Utah State.
That's on the heels of beating New Mexico earlier in the week, who's the top team in the regular season in the conference right now. So Boise State got a win at home that they needed, and then that was kind of like a resume protector moment for Boise State at 47 in the net. You can't lose to Nevada, who's 75 in the net, and they beat them. They had to protect the resume. They did. Go ahead.
That's right. So if Boise State can beat Utah State and then grab a couple more wins, Boise State will be right there. So it's definitely.
What about
It's
Colorado
very
State?
likely.
They're in third.
Colorado State has not been able to beat Utah State or New Mexico. Colorado State is definitely several notches below Boise State. So it's probably 3.
Yeah. They're 64 in the net, Colorado State, 1 quad 1 win.
Right.
Contrast that to San Diego State, who's 49 in the net, 4 quad 1 wins. These things matter. Yep. Is the Mountain West a 3-bid league? Is it maybe only a 2-bid league when it's all said and done? Final takes?
3 is going to be the floor. It depends on whether Boise State's able to join San Diego State and make it a 4-bid league. The other thing we have to consider is if San Diego State and Boise State both leave the door open, how's that bracket at the Mountain West tournament going to look? Or let's say San Diego State and Boise State play each other in a semifinal, that could be a double rubble bubble trouble game. The winners in and the losers out. But the San Diego State and Boise State could be on opposite sides of the bracket, so that would influence the bubble calculus going into the Mountain West tournament. So it's probably 3. Boise State has a chance to make it 4. And of course, with the bubble carnage today, and in terms of the bubble, SMU, Pitt, and then Steve Forbes and Wake Forest step on a rake again in a big bubble situation against a bad team. Like
Texas
the ACC
loses to South Carolina, winless.
Yeah, Texas lost to South Carolina tonight, who had been
winless. South Carolina.
George Mason, our buddy Bill Rowland was on with us. George Mason needed that game with VCU today. Would have been a quad 1 win. They didn't get it. Earlier today.
Taxes, the A10 cannibalizing itself.
Yeah. So the bubble took a hit today for all these that, again, we covered it last week, that wanted to expand. Look at what we're scraping. I mean, we're scraping around the very, very bare part of the barrel or the can. Very true.
So just to finish that thought, because the ACC bubble and a lot of other bubble teams failed. Now, obviously, Arkansas and Vanderbilt are the huge bubble winners today, but just about everyone else faltered. Because of that, that could open the door for Boise State to make it a 4-bid Mountain West instead of just 3. It's likely 3, but Boise State could make it 4.
Listen, I love your insight on all this. They can read you at Trojans Wire, the USA Today website, trojanswire.com. Also, Bruins Wire for the UCLA Bruins, correct? UCLA, Ohio State.
UCLA Wire, and I've just joined
Wire,
College Wire, College Sports Wire, which is the national.
All of those USA Today sites, College Wire, UCLA Wire, Trojans Wire, UCLA, Ohio State Sunday, USC at Rutgers Sunday. Yep. So read him more there. Follow him at Matt Zemek, Zemek. The next time we're doing a Saturday night show, it's in March. We're looking forward to that. The merry month of March is about to be here. My friend, thank you for the knowledge. We appreciate it. Again, your evening's just kind of rolling along out in Arizona. Arizona, by the way, trailing BYU at last check with about 9.5 minutes to play. 70-68 BYU leads. Does that all but punch BYU's ticket if they beat Arizona at Arizona tonight?
100%. BYU's already been trending upward, beat Kansas and Kansas State. They beat Arizona in Tucson. Yes, that's a ticket.
It helps them greatly. Matt, thank you. Have a good night, brother. See you later.
And so the next time I see you, it will be officially Free Throw Awareness Month. Friends, don't let friends miss front ends.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's a good way to end it on that. Thank you, Matt. Have a good night. There goes Matt Zemek. Remaining moments. Did we leave anything else out, Jason Powers, on the live Saturday Nightcap show?
Yes, we have to we have something we have to celebrate.
Oh, do we?
Your Steinbrenner Warriors going to the Final Four.
This is true. The ladies of Steinbrenner High School, George M. Steinbrenner High School, have qualified for the state Final Four for the first time ever, girls basketball or even boys basketball, that they've gone to the state semifinals. So they clinch the regional final, beating rival Sickles High School of North Tampa on Friday night. Congratulations to the George Steinbrenner Lady Warriors They will now play in the 6A semifinals against Miami Southridge High School. So this is a fun thing. My twins go to George Steinbrenner High School. They're friends. They're fellow players on the varsity team. They're JV players. They are excited. They're pumped. It's going to be March Madness because the state semifinal game's not until March. March Madness there for the ladies as well.
My question is the celebrity guest PA announcer going to get fitted for a ring if they win it all?
I don't know. I don't know that I'm involved to that extent. I do know they cut the nets down last night. I did not get invited to cut a net down up on the ladder for that. But this is a fun thing. There's another Tampa Bay team, Bloomingdale High School in southern Hillsborough County, southeast Hillsborough County. They're in the 6A Final Four as well. Could it be two Hillsborough County Tampa teams that get into the Final Four? Matt Zimick would tell you all about the Arizona State playoffs. As Adam Zagoria said, that in Maine, where Cooper Flagg's brother is, they won a state championship in high school basketball tonight, but all over the country, whether you're talking about Indiana or Kentucky or any hotbed of basketball, North Carolina, Kansas, any of it.
And for our women's fans out there, the niece of Candace Parker is the star player for your Steinbrenner Warriors.
More love for Steinbrenner. Naomi Parker is her name. Naomi is Candace Parker, the former Player of the Year, the former college national champion at Tennessee, the former WNBA champion and All-Star. Candace's niece, Naomi, had 28 in the Elite Eight game on her birthday. Happy birthday, Naomi Parker. Shout out on college basketball coast to coast. She looks to be playing somewhere at the next level next year. Looking at several collegiate options for Naomi Parker. So a lot of fun with all the high school hoops all over the country, narrowing down to their Final Fours and state championships.
Our buddy Bart Heisch is going to be doing the Alabama State tournament this coming up week, I believe.
That is correct. Their state championships coming up. Our buddy Vince Ferrara has also been involved with the Tennessee high school playoffs. Our buddy Dan Leach in Michigan with the Michigan high school playoffs as they narrow down. It's incredible. A lot of these states are so big. Texas, California, they don't have a true entire state championship. For a lot of them, they just have a championship of the region where they are because it's so big and so many schools. It just kind of depends. But yes, we love it with the high school basketball. Did we leave anything else out here on a Saturday? Again, UConn, we said this earlier, and St. John's at the Garden at noon Eastern time. UConn is in, but they've been teetering. They've taken some losses. St. John's leads the Big East. It has been 25 years since they have won the Big East regular season championship. They haven't been this relevant this century, what Rick Pitino has done. It's amazing.
That building will be jumping tomorrow at noon, buddy.
Yeah, and it was jumping tonight at the beginning for Duke and Illinois, and then the game started, and Duke annihilated Illinois tonight, and now less than 14 hours later, it's St. John's and Georgetown. By the way, my Memphis Tigers are back with Florida Atlantic. Memphis took a loss last week on Sunday to Wichita State, snapping their 8-game win streak. Now they'll try to get it regrouped with Florida Atlantic. They have a soft end of the regular season, probably UAB. Your UAB Blazers at UAB is the only tough team they really have remaining. Can Memphis get some mojo back? They're safely in the tournament, but they don't want their seed line to take a hit from a 5 to a 6 to a 7 to an 8 by losing games in the American Conference. So stay tuned. We talked about St. Mary's and the WCC. We talked about Virginia Commonwealth, VCU, and the Atlantic 10. Look out for some of those teams as teams not in the Power 5.
Professional win by Florida today. They jumped out huge on LSU, fell behind at the half, and then came storming back and blew them out in the second half. So give them credit. They didn't falter. Auburn kind of a labor today against Georgia a little bit. They got it done. So, again, the heavyweights of the SEC labored a little bit, but they got it done.
Florida looks every bit the part of a Final Four team with multiple scorers, size, etc. Auburn struggled at times against Georgia, but they still found a way to get enough defense, make shots. They've got so many different interchangeable players at the 2, the 3, or the 4 positions that they can get it done with. And Bruce Pearl, a masterful coach. We're not crowning them, nor are we crowning Izzo in Michigan State, or Kelvin Sampson in Houston, or John Shire in Duke, or Rick Pitino in St. John's. But there certainly looks like a distinction near the top for several of these schools, whether it be at the top of the SEC or Duke or Michigan State or Houston, that they can be in the Final Four. Jason Powers, final thought. Anything else? Are we good for a Saturday night cap?
We are good, brother. Covered a lot.
I think we did. Thanks to Bill Rowland, the George Mason Patriots voice. Find him on social media at Bill Rowland, ROHLAND. Thank you to Adam Zagoria of the Zags blog and NJ.com, writing on Duke and Illinois. Get his post-game recap right there from courtside at Madison Square Garden on Duke's win at NJ.com. He's Adam Zagoria on Twitter, Zagoria, Adam Zagoria. Matt Zimick with us talking West Coast basketball and Big Ten basketball and more. Trojans Wire website, UCLA Wire website. Follow him at Matt Zimick, Zemek. Follow Jason Powers at JPO Sports. Find the Powers on Sports podcast, wherever you get podcasts.
I might be reporting from the desert next Saturday night.
You're going to hang out in the desert with Zimick maybe for next week. Stand by for that. I am merely TJ Rives. Whether you found us via social media or on YouTube, subscribe to the YouTube channel, College Basketball Coast to Coast. Find the Twitter handle at CBB Coast to Coast. Find the podcast, College Basketball Coast to Coast, on podcast form. Also, get ready on the TuneIn Live channel for live college basketball games on the College Basketball Coast to Coast channel in championship week. I think we've got it all. Brother Powers, have a good rest of your weekend. Thank you. And we thank all of you for watching and for listening to College Basketball Coast to Coast.